The UFC middleweight division has officially gone off the rails. Kamzat Chimayv is threatening to kill Dricus du Plessis. Backup fighters are overlapping. The title fight may not even happen. And legends like Alex Pereira are confronting commentators face to face. Meanwhile, Max Holloway versus Nate Diaz is somehow being teased for a BMF war at 170. This isn't just fight hype anymore. This is chaos. And with UFC 319 looming, everything is coming to a boiling point. In this video, we'll unpack every jaw-dropping twist happening right now, from Kamzat's unpredictability to Caio Barrio's weird situation to whether this fight will even happen. Buckle up. This is the most unstable the division has ever been. It was only a matter of time before Kamzat Chimayv took things too far, but nobody expected this. Just weeks before UFC 319, Kamzat ignited a firestorm online. Not with fight hype, not with strategy, but with an outright death threat to Dricus du Plessis. "I will kill you," he posted. No metaphor, no filter, no boundaries. And with that, the UFC's middleweight title fight turned from competition to pure hostility. Fans were divided instantly. Half of them wrote it off as promotional antics, saying Kamzat was just channeling the classic bad guy energy to sell tickets. But the other half, they weren't laughing. They've seen this version of Kamzat before. Intense, irrational, unfiltered, and emotionally volatile. And this time, it felt darker, not calculated, just unstable. There's already been concern about Kamzat's emotional balance heading into high-stakes fights. He's been known to disappear from training camps, to react aggressively to press, and to let emotion drive his decision-making. But when you openly threaten to kill your opponent in an era where sportsmanship and public image matter more than ever, it's not just drama. It's a potential PR disaster. Sponsors don't like it. Media outlets recoil from it. And the UFC, they're stuck in the middle. And here's the eerie part. Dricus hasn't even responded. He's either letting the madness play out or mentally preparing for a war that may not happen. Either way, fans are starting to worry this won't be a technical bout. It might be a personal war inside the cage. And that changes everything. UFC 319 is no longer a title fight. It's a psychological showdown between a rising chaos agent and a man who's walking into the fire anyway. One of the strangest developments in the build-up to UFC 319 is unfolding behind the scenes, and it's threatening to derail everything. Just weeks ago, Nassourdine Imavov publicly claimed to be the official backup fighter for the Kamzat versus Dricus title bout. Fans took it as gospel. He's ranked, he's active, he's healthy. It made perfect sense. But suddenly, Caio Barrio announces that he is the official backup. What? How? When? This contradiction immediately set off alarms. How can two men be told they're the backup for the same fight? Are the fighters being misled? Is the UFC hedging its bets? Or is someone flat out lying? To make it even weirder, Caio and Imavov are scheduled to fight each other in September. That means Caio could be cutting weight twice in less than a month, and not just for a random scrap, but for a possible last-minute title shot. That's not just a bad idea. That's a medical hazard. Cutting weight is brutal. It stresses the heart, the kidneys, and the entire nervous system. Doing it twice in rapid succession can permanently damage a fighter's health, and Caio doesn't even seem fazed. Either he's supremely confident, or he's being used as a pawn in a larger game of contingency planning. Fans are left scratching their heads. If Kamzat pulls out, as he has before, which backup gets the call? If Dricus gets hurt, does Caio still step in, or will we see an all-out scramble the week of the event? One thing's certain, there's no real clarity, and that's dangerous. The middleweight division is teetering, and backup confusion like this only makes the fall feel inevitable. Dean Thomas said it out loud, something many fans have whispered for years. Is Kamzat reliable? On paper, Kamzat Chimayv looks like a monster, undefeated, ferocious, built like a tank. But when you look beyond the highlights and dig into his record on topology, the truth is hard to ignore. Kamzat has pulled out of at least 6 scheduled fights in just a few years, and the pattern is deeply troubling. Let's break it down. First, there were the 3 scheduled fights with Leon Edwards between 2020 and 2021. Yes, COVID played a role. But so did Kamzat's own health, including a shocking moment when he reportedly retired briefly due to lingering effects from the virus. That alone sent red flags flying. Then came the Nate Diaz fight, which Kamzat torpedoed by missing weight badly. He was replaced by Kevin Holland at the last second, a scramble that nearly collapsed the whole card. While Kamzat still fought that night, the damage to his reputation was done. And let's not forget Paulo Costa. That matchup had heat, hype, and momentum until it vanished. Details were murky, and neither side gave a clear answer. But the result? Another cancelled showdown. Even the Robert Whittaker fight, which finally happened in October 2024, was originally slated for June. Another delay, another question mark. Dean Thomas isn't just speculating. He's pointing at a trend. You can't build a division around a champion who might not show up. And that's what makes UFC 319 so risky. Kamzat's past isn't ancient history. It's recent, active, and relevant. Can fans trust he'll make it to the cage? Can the UFC? Because if he doesn't, this entire title picture collapses like a house of cards. Veteran analyst and former fighter Dean Thomas didn't mince words. He believes crowning Kamzat Chimayv as champion could spell absolute disaster for the middleweight division. That's not hyperbole. That's a blunt warning from someone who's been around the sport long enough to spot danger from a mile away. In Dean's view, the issue isn't just Kamzat's fight skills or his cardio. It's reliability, stability, the kind of foundation you need in a champion if you want the division to thrive. And Kamzat, according to Dean, simply doesn't provide that. Dean points out what many hardcore fans already know. A division only works if the champ defends regularly, shows up consistently, and plays ball with the UFC. Look at previous champions like Anderson Silva or Israel Adesanya. Love them or hate them, they were dependable. They fought often, stayed healthy, and moved the rankings forward. With Kamzat, none of that is guaranteed. The guy has a proven pattern of uncertainty, disappearing for months, getting involved in public controversies, or showing signs that he's not 100% focused on fighting. And Dean Thomas made the point that's been whispered in private by UFC insiders for a while now. If he wins, how long before the belt gets held hostage? Kamzat is beloved by fans for his chaos, but that chaos could stall the division indefinitely. And there's more. Thomas warns that if Kamzat becomes champion and then starts missing weight, backing out of fights, or calling his own shots, it could scare away contenders, jam up timelines, and force the UFC into constant backup plans. We're already seeing confusion with Bahio and Imavov. Multiply that across 6 months of stalled matchmaking, and the whole division becomes a mess. It's a bold stance. But Dean Thomas didn't just offer criticism. He offered a clear solution. Give the belt to someone consistent, like Dricus du Plessis, or even a dark horse like RDR. Because if the UFC lets chaos run the throne, they might not be able to get it back. When Rainier de Ridder made a bold statement about UFC 319, fans had mixed reactions. But insiders knew he wasn't talking trash. He was speaking from experience. RDR has trained with both Kamzat Chimayv and Dricus du Plessis. He's rolled with them, sparred with them, and studied their styles up close. And according to him, Kamzat is actually the easier of the two to prepare for. That might sound crazy on paper, but when you look deeper, his logic starts to click. RDR explained that Kamzat's style is intense but predictable. He's a pressure-heavy wrestler with a clean boxing base, and his game is built around explosive takedowns and constant control. That's dangerous, sure, but it's also a formula. It can be replicated. It can be trained against. In RDR's words, you just bring in a couple Dagestani or Chechen wrestlers, and you can simulate his approach pretty closely. On among MMA analysts who believe Kamzat's style has plateaued. The days of him steamrolling unranked guys are over. He's now facing opponents who've studied him, who aren't afraid of the takedown, and who can disrupt his rhythm. For RDR, the goal is simple. Study both men, wait for one to win, and prepare to challenge them within the next 6 to 9 months. And with that kind of mindset, RDR might be playing the smartest long game in the division. While the spotlight stays fixed on Kamzat Chimayev's chaos and Dricus du Plessis's championship run, one name is quietly gaining momentum: Rainier de Ridder. He may not be flashy on social media or headline-hungry like others, but make no mistake, RDR is positioning himself as the most dangerous under-the-radar threat in the entire middleweight division. It's easy to overlook him. He's not part of the UFC's marketing machine. He's not involved in wild call-outs or dramatic stare-downs. But when you look at his record and his style, the danger becomes obvious. His recent win over Robert Whittaker, while not a finish, was a clear statement. He outmaneuvered one of the most seasoned fighters in the sport. He showed composure, control, and versatility, and in doing so, forced analysts to start taking him seriously. What makes RDR so dangerous is his balance. His striking may be funky, as some call it, but it disrupts rhythm and keeps opponents guessing. He doesn't follow standard combination. He uses feints, off-angle attacks, and unorthodox timing to throw you off. And once it goes to the ground, that's where he becomes lethal. His high-level jiu-jitsu is among the best in the division, and once he secures top control, very few escape. If either Dricus or Kamzat wins the belt at UFC 319, RDR becomes the next logical challenger. He's fresh, dangerous, and stylistically frustrating. In many ways, he's the exact opposite of Kamzat. Where Kamzat brings aggression, RDR brings precision. Where Kamzat explodes, RDR dissects. And most importantly, RDR shows up. No drama, no missed weights, no uncertainty, just results. With the chaos around UFC 319, the backup confusion, and the tension between camps, the UFC may be forced to pivot sooner than later. And when that moment comes, don't be surprised if Rainier de Ridder, the silent killer, is the one walking into the cage next. Middleweight Chaos didn't just stay inside the cage this week. Outside the octagon, tensions boiled over in a way no one expected. Legendary striker Alex Pereira, usually calm, cold, and calculated, had an uncharacteristically heated confrontation with UFC commentator Michael Bisping, and it all went down in public. According to Bisping's own story, the encounter happened late at night outside a hotel. He was walking back from dinner with his wife when he spotted Pereira, standing out front with his coach and translator, Plinio Cruz. What started as a casual, "Hey champ," turned into a silent stare-down. No smiles, no words, just Pereira's icy glare locking onto Bisping. And Bisping, to his credit, didn't back down. But even he admitted something felt off. "He looked at me like he wanted to kill me," Bisping said. But this wasn't random. It was personal. Bisping had previously criticized Pereira after his lackluster title loss to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313. He said Pereira looked like he didn't want to be there, that he lacked fire, that the performance was lazy. Harsh words, and they didn't sit well with Pereira or his team. Plinio Cruz later added fuel to the fire, firing shots at Bisping online and accusing him of being disrespectful and biased. And now, with the Ankalaev rematch looming in October, Pereira clearly hasn't forgotten. This is no longer just about redemption in the cage. It's about silencing critics. And Bisping, whether he meant to or not, has become the poster child for the doubters. What's striking here is the change in Pereira's demeanor. This is a man who usually lets his fists do the talking, but that cold, calculated aura seems to have been replaced with something new, raw emotion. Maybe it's pressure, maybe it's pride, but one thing's for sure. Pereira is entering the rematch not just to win, but to punish. The entire vibe around him has shifted, and for fans, this moment, this stare down with Bisping, was a warning shot. If you thought Alex Pereira was fading, think again. He's angry, he's watching, and he's ready to remind the world what a motivated monster looks like. As if things weren't chaotic enough in the middleweight division, another bombshell dropped this week, and it has fans salivating. During a recent episode of their podcast, Josh Thompson and Big John McCarthy weighed in on the possibility of Max Holloway versus Nate Diaz for the BMF title, and they weren't holding back. The idea: Holloway defends the BMF belt against Nate Diaz at 160 170. Sounds wild, sounds reckless, but it might just be the fight we never knew we needed. Max Holloway's gritty, gutsy performance against Dustin Poirier to claim the BMF strap has catapulted him back into the mainstream. And with Nate Diaz teasing a return to the UFC after his recent boxing win over Jorge Masvidal, the timing couldn't be better. You've got two beloved fan-favorite brawlers, both with granite chins, endless cardio, and nothing to lose, clashing for the most chaotic belt in MMA. Thompson laid it out bluntly. The UFC doesn't care about rankings when it comes to guys like Nate, he said. They care about numbers, eyeball, clicks. And this fight, this breaks the internet. He's not wrong. Diaz versus Holloway would be a war. It wouldn't make sense on paper, but it would be everything the fans want. Big John agreed, adding that this is exactly how the UFC works. Beat the dead horse until there's nothing left, he joked, referring to the UFC's habit of squeezing every ounce of value out of big names. And Nate Diaz? He's still a draw, even at 40, even after losses, even without a title run in sight. What's more, Diaz has options. Michael Chandler, Jorge Masvidal, even Conor McGregor, if stars align. But Max? He might be the most winnable and most exciting of the bunch. The BMF belt was always a spectacle. That's the point. And with Nate's unpredictability and Holloway's hunger, this fight wouldn't just be a headliner, it'd be an event. The only question now, will the UFC pull the trigger? As fans, we're operating off half-truths and rumors. Who's the official backup? It changes depending on who you ask. Is Kamzat healthy? We don't really know. What about the mental state of Pereira heading into his rematch? That stare-down with Bisping suggests he's either locked in or unraveling. Either way, there's uncertainty everywhere. And that's the thread running through this entire saga. Uncertainty. The UFC middleweight division is like a powder keg right now. Every time it starts to settle, someone lights another match. Whether it's Kamzat's outbursts, backup chaos, or title picture shifts, the division can't stabilize. And for all the hype, that's a dangerous spot to be in. Fighters can't plan. Matchmakers are juggling variables. And fans? They're stuck in a holding pattern, clinging to every leaked tweet and interview for scraps of clarity. So where does this all go? That's the hardest part. Even with RDR waiting in the wings, even with Bisping, Diaz, and Holloway shaking up headlines, even with all the star power on deck, the core of the division remains fragile until UFC 319 actually goes down, with both fighters making weight, entering the cage, and walking out healthy. This entire title run feels like a game of Jenga, and any wrong move could bring it all crashing down. So buckle up, because the truth is, this division isn't just unpredictable, it's unstable, and the chaos, it's only getting started.